Hello everyone, welcome to Economics. This is second lecture of intermediate macroeconomics, and in this lecture we will start with the price determination and we will move on to the equilibrium conditions from wage setting and price setting equation. So in the last class we discussed about wage determination where the wage was written as wage W was equal to PE times F of UZ, where PE was the expected price, U was the unemployment rate, and Z was the catch-all variable. And for catch-all variable, we saw that unemployment allowance was one example. Okay, or you can say social security type of things are taken in the catch-all variables. So today we will discuss with price determination. Okay, so you saw that in wage determination there was the negotiation between labor unions and firms. Okay, price determination, here in this price determination only the firms will be deciding the prices. Firms have the role to play for the determination of prices, but not labor. Why? Because workers have no control on the prices. They have to determine only wages from the bargaining perspective. But on the price, they have no control. Okay? Now think. जब आपके पास एक फर्म है, वो फर्म कुछ प्राइस चार्ज कर रही है, अब उसमें वर्कर तो जाकर कहेगा नहीं कि इतना प्राइस चार्ज करो. क्यों? क्योंकि वर्कर को क्या करना उससे. अब फर्म को जो चूज करना होगा प्राइस, फर्म कैसे चूज करेगी. फर्म क्या करेगी, अपना देखेगी कि प्रोडक्शन मेरा कैसे हो रहा है, कितने मेरे इनपुट्स यूज हो रहे हैं, क्या मेरा कॉस्ट आया, उससे ही डिसाइड करेगा. दैट मीन्स द प्राइस डिटर्मिनेशन बाय द फर्म will occur based on what cost that the firm bears. Okay, and that cost will be taken from the production function, and the production function is saying how much output you can produce from the given set of inputs. For simplicity, we would be assuming that there is only one factor of production, that is labor, and that determines your output. Further, we have assumed that in this model there would be constant returns to labor. That means if labor is multiplied by 2, in that case output will be multiplied by 2. Okay, and later you could see that this meant that the labor productivity is equal to 1. Okay, so labor productivity means A. So we will start with that. So suppose if you have a production function, you see that for production function you have output as function of some inputs, and I said there is only one input, that is labor. So Y is your output, N is your labor. Okay, so this means that there is only one input, that is labor, that determines the output. Okay, so you would write only one input, that is labor, determines the output. Okay, so this is the condition, and for simplicity it is assumed that Y is equal to AN. Okay, so we will see here you have your production function given as Y is equal to F of N. Okay, and this is equal to A times N. Okay, so A here is the labor productivity. Okay, what is the labor productivity? Labor productivity is the factor by which the increase in your labor leads to the increase in your output. Okay, that is labor productivity determines the ratio of output to the labor. That means if you get 1 unit of labor, then how much unit of output you can produce, that is labor productivity. So labor productivity is the amount of output that is being created, or you can say that is being produced by the employment of 1 unit of labor. Okay, so that is what we have. So this is the case. Now take a condition. Suppose you have a equal to 1. Okay, it means labor productivity is equal to 1. In that case, your y would be equal to n. Okay, so this is just an assumption, just for the simplification thing, because whatever generalizations are there, that will not be affected by the change in the value of a. Okay, so that's why for simplicity we have assumed that a is equal to n. So y is equal to n. Okay, so for 1 unit of output you will require 1 unit of labor. Okay, and for 1 unit of output the firm can charge p amount of price. Okay, so p is the price. So p is price of output. Okay, so this is the case, and you know that w is the wage rate. Now suppose this mu is markup. You know, under perfect competition there are many firms and there are many consumers. That is the perfect competition. Now suppose in the production market, that is from the perspective of firms, there is perfect competition. Okay, so if there is perfect competition in the output, in that case there would be a number of firms, that is infinite number of firms. Okay, and they will be competing with one another. So suppose if one of the firm is earning some positive profit, then there would be some other firms that will charge some price lower than that. Okay, and that firm which charges the price lower than the other firm which was earning some positive profit, then the firm that charges lower price will take over entire market. Okay, so that will happen. Okay, so in this way you would see that the prices will fall to the marginal cost. What I mean to say is that when you have the perfect competition, in that case price is always equal to marginal cost. This you know. Okay, so in perfect competition you have price equal to marginal cost. And what is the marginal cost here? Marginal cost is the cost of producing 1 unit of output. Okay, so 1 unit of output y is to be produced. So for 1 unit of output you need 1 unit of labor. Okay, and what is the cost of 1 unit of labor? That is equal to w. So marginal cost in the perfect competition is equal to w for this given supposition. Okay, so you have price equal to w in the case of perfect competition. Okay, now recall from whatever the assumptions I had discussed in the introductory lecture, you could recall that I had said that there would be imperfect competition in the market. Imperfect competition means there are not infinite firms, there are some firms. Okay, and they are not necessarily infinite in number. In that case you would see that the firms will be charging some extra price, that will be called markup. Some extra price over what? Over wage, which is the marginal cost for the firms. Okay, so this is what you have. Now suppose if we are having the case of imperfect competition. Imperfect competition, why? Because in neoclassical model we had the case of imperfect competition in the product market, that is output market. So imperfect competition means that the firms will charge some price higher than the marginal cost. Okay, so I will write this as under imperfect competition, firms charge price P equal to 1 plus mu times W. Okay, so what is mu here? Mu is the markup. Okay, so suppose the cost is say 100 rupees of the firm, and the firm wants to earn 10% of the profit. Okay, so this is the marginal cost, and if the firm wants to have 10% profit, so this 10% profit is the markup. Okay, so how much the firm will charge? The firm will charge 110%. Okay, now suppose if in place of 100 you had the marginal cost equal to 200, and the firm wants to have mu equal to 10%, that is markup equal to 10%. In that case, whatever the price the firm can charge will depend on these two things, marginal cost and the markup. So marginal cost is 200, and over this the firm will try to earn 10% profit, so that will be 1 plus 10%, so it will be 220. Okay, so for this case you have marginal cost equal to W. So this is what you have. Now just take a note of it. So here you could see that price is determined where price is equal to 1 plus mu times W. Okay, now think, when you have the case of perfect competition, in that case this mu will tend to fall. Why? Because when the price would be higher than the marginal cost, that is W, then some of the firms will try to reduce the price. Why? Because they would still earn some profit. That would be positive. Okay, but they would be capturing the entire market. That means entire profit in the market they can capture. Okay, so their firms will be incentivized to charge markup somewhat lower than the other firms are charging. Okay, so this will happen for all the firms. There are infinite firms, so they would be doing this, and at the end you will see that this mu will fall to 0. Okay, why this would fall? Because the profits have to be falling. If the profits are to be falling, in that case the firms will have the reduction in the profits. Okay, and whatever the positive profit will be there, that will incentivize the firm to reduce the price somewhat fraction, or you can say by some penny. Okay, so do you think that a small amount will have a large impact on the firm's profit? Then I would say yes. Why? Because there are infinite number of sellers and infinite number of buyers, so the market is very large. So if you talk in terms of billions, in that case even 1 rupee cut in the price will mean 1 billion rupee. Okay, so that is the power. Okay, so under perfect competition you would have price will be equal to wage, while under imperfect competition the firms will be charging price equal to 1 plus mu times W. Now we will extend this price determination and what we discussed in the last class as wage determination to get what we have, the equations as wage setting equation and price setting equation. That is the genesis of this particular model. Okay, so we would extend this now. So for wage setting equations, so just write wage setting. Okay, so if I say we have to discuss about wage setting, okay, in that case, your wage setting relation would mean when you have price equal to PE, in that case, you have W being equal to PE into F of UZ. This will equal to W equal to P into F of UZ. Okay. So why this P is equal to P? We have the assumption that whatever the agents are there in the economy, they are rational. रेशनल का मतलब क्या है कि जब भी इकोनॉमिक एजेंट्स यानी कि बायर्स, सेलर्स या प्रोड्यूसर्स, कंज्यूमर्स, इनके बारे में बात हो रही है, लेबर के बारे में बात हो रही है, फर्म्स के बारे में बात हो रही है, इन दैट केस व्हाट एवर द इकोनॉमिक एजेंट्स आर देयर, दे आर रेशनल. रेशनल इन द सेंस कि वो जो सपोज करेंगे ना, यानी एक्सपेक्टेशन लगाएंगे, वो एक्सपेक्टेशन कुछ समय के बाद वो ऑन एवरेज अगर देखोगे तो वो हकीकत में ट्रू वैल्यू के बराबर आएंगे. ओके, सो मान लो अभी के लिए जो एक्सपेक्टेशन लगाया गया प्राइस का फर्म्स के अकॉर्डिंग, क्योंकि फर्म को प्राइस सेट करनी है, ठीक है, तो उसको पता है कि प्राइस क्या होना है. सो वर्कर्स को एक्सपेक्ट करना है, मान लो वेज सेट करने के लिए वर्कर्स को प्राइस एक्सपेक्ट करना है. यही था कंडीशन, क्योंकि प्राइस वर्कर्स को पता नहीं होती थी. इन दैट केस दे वर एक्सपेक्टिंग सम प्राइस. ओके, सो वर्कर्स कुछ एक्सपेक्टेशन लगा रहे हैं प्राइस के बारे में. दैट एक्सपेक्टेड प्राइस विल बी एक्चुअल प्राइस इन द लॉन्ग रन. क्यों होगा एक्चुअल? क्योंकि थ्रू आउट टाइम आप देखोगे रेशनैलिटी का मतलब होता है कि जैसे जैसे चेंजेस आप देख रहे हो अपने एक्सपीरियंस के अकॉर्डिंग, वैसे ही आप अपने डिसीजन मेकिंग में भी चेंजेस ला रहे हो, अपने एक्सपेक्टेशंस में चेंजेस ला रहे हो. मतलब पहले मान लो क्या होता है, प्राइस क्या थी, ज्यादा थी, तो आप ज्यादा एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे. समझ रहे हो? तो अगर प्राइस अब काफी कम हो रही है तो अब आपका साइकोलॉजिकल थॉट आएगा कि अब प्राइस कम होने वाली है. इन दैट केस यू विल थिंक दैट द प्राइस वुड बी लोअर. दैट मीन्स योर एक्सपेक्टेशन would mean that your expected price would be lower. And for the previous case, when you had experienced higher prices, your psychological mindset was such that you would expect the price being higher. Okay, so that is the thing. And in the equilibrium, or you can say when we take for longer horizons of time, in that case, the true value of the price will equal the expected value. Okay, so ये होता है. मतलब क्यों होता है? क्योंकि रेशनैलिटी के assumption से. मैं आपको लिखवा ही देता हूं. Due to rationality of the workers. ठीक है, वर्कर्स आर रेशनल, कहने का मतलब यही है. सो W इज इक्वल टू P इंटू एफ ऑफ यूज इट. ओके, सो आप ये भी पूछोगे कि वेज के साथ प्राइस का 1-to-1 रिलेशन है. ओके, सो why this happened, although you have no defined linear relationship with this particular variables, that is U and Z. Okay, so I would say that as your price increases by 10%, in that case, you would ask for wage to be higher by 10%. Why? Because you have to look for real wage that we discussed in the last class. Okay, so we discussed that this is real wage and the workers are thinking in terms of real wage. इन टर्म्स ऑफ आउटपुट, आउटपुट के टर्म्स में जब भी बात करोगे तो रियल का बात करोगे, ठीक है, और मॉनेटरी टर्म्स में बात करोगे तो डब्ल्यू बात करोगे, यानी कि डब्ल्यू जो है नॉमिनल जो है ये मॉनेटरी टर्म्स में है, नंबर्स, ठीक है, और डब्ल्यू बाई पी क्या है, कमोडिटीज के टर्म्स में वो रियल है, ठीक है. सो लेट्स सी हियर, हियर यू विल हैव डब्ल्यू बाई पी equal to f of u z. Okay, so this equation is called wage setting. Wage setting equation बोलो, wage setting relation बोलो. Okay, now see price setting relation. So for price setting relation you have this case, p equal to 1 plus mu times w. Okay, so you have price setting as p equal to 1 plus mu times w. Okay, so this will have p by w equal to 1 plus mu, or you can say w by p equal to 1 upon 1 plus mu. Remember, this is mu and that is u. U is for the rate of unemployment and mu is for the markup. Okay, so this is what you have as price setting relation or price setting equation. Just take a note of these two. Okay. So we were interested in knowing what would be the real wage that the workers would be getting depending upon the rate of unemployment. Okay, so that is the condition we have to derive. So to determine the equilibrium, we will have in equilibrium wage setting and price setting equations giving you the same W by P. Okay, so what is W by P in this case? W by P was equal to F of U Z, and from the price setting equation you have W by P equal to 1 upon 1 plus mu. Okay, so these two equations you got. So if you take them together, you will get f of u z equal to 1 upon 1 plus mu. Okay, and at equilibrium you have u being equal to un. Okay, so you would say that under equilibrium you will get the unemployment rate being equal to un. Okay, in that case when you have equilibrium of price setting and wage setting relations, we get un. Un is natural rate of unemployment. So let's see on graph. Suppose on the horizontal axis you have the rate of unemployment. So u is unemployment rate. And this is the real wage, W by P. This is your real wage. Okay. So for wage setting, you have the unemployment rate determining W by P, and there was negative relation and positive relation for Z. So as your unemployment rate increases, your real wage falls. Okay. So you would have some curve which will be downward sloping. So suppose this is that curve, and that curve is a wage setting curve. Okay. And for this case of price setting equation, you could see that there is no unemployment rate. So this equation is independent of the rate of unemployment. In that case, W by P would be independent of the rate of unemployment. That means whatever will be the rate of unemployment, there would be some W by P which would be the same. Okay, and that value is 1 upon 1 plus mu. So at some 1 upon 1 plus mu, your W by P is there. Okay, and this will have for all the rate of unemployment. Okay, so this line is called price setting. Okay, so when these two curves intersect, that gives you the equilibrium rate of unemployment. Okay, so that is called natural rate of unemployment, or what you call a structural rate of unemployment. Okay, so this is what you have for this case. So UN is also called a structural rate of unemployment. This, I don't think, will be asked that who gave the structural rate of unemployment. This was given by Phelps. Okay. So you could see that the wage setting and price setting equations determined the equilibrium real wage and the equilibrium condition of the unemployment rate, what we called as the natural rate of unemployment. So is it really natural? Natural means determined by the nature. Okay, so this is not determined by the nature, this is determined by some factors like unemployment rate, Z, and mu. Okay, so this is what you have. So if you have any change in U, Z, or mu, these two curves will change. Either of these two will change. Okay, so if mu is changed, in that case price setting line will change. If U or Z changes, in that case wage setting changes. And if a combination of any of these two and mu changes, in that case both these two curves will change. Okay, so this is what you have. So what is a structural rate of change? That means a structure is meaning the dynamics of the economy. That means the characteristics of the economy. That characteristics or that structure of the economy determines the unemployment rate. That is what you have, the structural rate of unemployment. Okay, so this is determined by the structure of the economy. Okay, so now think, whatever be the output, मतलब आउटपुट कितनी भी बढ़ रही हो, फिर भी क्या होता है, कुछ लोग अनएम्प्लॉयड रहते हैं, उसको बोलते हैं नेचुरल रेट ऑफ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट. ऐसा क्यों होता है? जैसे कि मान लो आपके प्रोफेसर्स हैं, कुछ प्रोफेसर्स अपनी पीएचडी कंप्लीट करने चले गए, या पोस्ट डॉक के लिए चले गए, या किसी रिसर्च में चले गए, समझ रहे हो? तो ये एक तरह से छुट्टी हुई और उस समय वो अनएम्प्लॉयड हो गया. ओके, सो व्हेन योर प्रोफेसर्स आर moving out of the employment, taking leave, and that leave might be due to say pregnancy. ठीक है, मैटरनिटी लीव ले लो, पैटर्निटी लीव ले लो, चाइल्ड केयर लीव ले लो, ये सारे लीव जो है ना, ये टेम्पररी है. ठीक है, या मान लो अपने स्किल को इनहांस करने के लिए ले रहे हो, स्किल को इनहांस करने के लिए इन द सेंस पोस्ट डॉक करने जा रहे हैं, या पीएचडी करने जा रहे हैं, या रिसर्च के लिए कहीं सीखने जा रहे हैं. ठीक है, इन दैट केस these things आर इनहेरेंट इन द इकोनॉमी, इकोनॉमी के स्ट्रक्चर में इनहेरेंट है, और उसी से आपका निकलता है स्ट्रक्चरल रेट ऑफ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट। ठीक है, सो इसको नोट डाउन कर लो एक बार। सो वट एवर द इक्विलिब्रियम कंडीशन यू विल गेट, दैट वुड डिटरमाइन द नेचुरल रेट ऑफ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट। ओके, now let's discuss how the changes in Z and mu will affect UN, that is natural rate of unemployment, or what we said a structural rate of unemployment. अब मान लो इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर में चेंज हो रही है, इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर इन द सेंस जेड और म्यू में, तो इकोनॉमी का स्ट्रक्चरल रेट ऑफ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट भी तो चेंज होना चाहिए। वो कैसे होगा ये देखते हैं। ओके, सो यू हैव व्हेन जेड changes. Okay, so always remember case 1 when z increases. Okay, so when z will increase, you will have this w by p being increased. Okay, in that case you would have this wage setting equation being shifted rightward. Okay, so you will have wage setting curve shifts rightward या upward. ठीक है, so this is when you have something like here as unemployment, here as w by p, and here you will have some wage setting, and here you have price setting. This price setting has w by p equal to 1 plus mu, and some w s dash will be the new wage setting line. Okay, here it is wage setting curve for this z increase, and that z increase is say the increase in unemployment benefits, या सोशल सिक्योरिटी का इंक्रीज हो सकता है। मान लो कुछ ऐसा है। तो आप क्या करोगे, जब आपके पास दिख रहा है अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट बेनिफिट बढ़ गया, तो आपको काम करने से देखना पड़ेगा ना कि अब आपका डिसीजन कहाँ पे होगा। सो देयर वुड बी सम वर्कर्स, ठीक है, जो कि अब काम नहीं करेंगे। क्यों? क्योंकि वट एवर द वेज देवर गेटिंग, अब उससे कंपैरिजन में उनका जो टाइम लग रहा था काम करने के लिए, अब वो टाइम का वैल्यू और अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट बेनिफिट का वैल्यू पहले वाले वेज से और जो टाइम का वैल्यू था उससे ज्यादा मिल रहा है। ओके, दैट मीन्स अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट बेनिफिट देख रहे हो, तो अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट बेनिफिट क्या कर सकता है, कुछ लोगों को मार्केट से बाहर कर सकता है विलिंगली। मतलब मेरे को काम नहीं करना है, मेरे को सरकार उतने पैसे दे रही है, मेरा घर चल जा रहा है, तो मैं क्यों करूँ काम। ठीक है, इस तरह के थॉट प्रोसेस हो सकते हैं। तो सम वर्कर्स में not participate in the employment. Okay, so in that case you will have the increase in unemployment rate from UN to UN dash. Okay, so you will have the rise in the rate of unemployment, which is the structural rate of unemployment, or you can say natural rate of unemployment. Okay, now let's see the second case when you have Z falling. Okay, in that case you have wage setting curve shifts leftward, or you can say downward. So you will have something like this case. Here you have W by P, and here you have wage setting equation. Here you have price setting line. So you have 1 upon 1 plus mu. So there would be some new curve. Okay. So the new curve will be leftward or downward. So something like this curve. So this is WS dash. And you could see that UN and UN dash. Here it is the fall in the natural rate of unemployment. Okay. So here you could see that this implied net result as UN increase. Here you have natural rate of unemployment falling. Okay. So this is rise in natural rate of unemployment. Here it is fall in natural rate of अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट. आप शॉर्टकट में नहीं लिखोगे, आप लोग पूरा ही लिखोगे. ठीक है. सो यहां भी अगर आप देखोगे तो आपका जेड फॉल का मतलब क्या हो सकता है? द डिक्रीज इन द अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट बेनिफिट्स, और यू कैन से सोशल सिक्योरिटी. चलो इसको जल्दी से नोट डाउन करो तो. Okay, now let's see the change in what we have as mu. Okay, so this is mu. Okay, mu is your markup. So case 1 is when you have mu increasing. Mu increasing means you have 1 upon 1 plus mu falling. Okay, so suppose this mu is increased, in that case 1 plus mu has increased, so 1 upon that value will be falling. Okay, why? Because जब भी आपका डिनोमिनेटर इंक्रीज करता है तो आपका फ्रैक्शन का वैल्यू फॉल करता है. Okay, so this is what you have. In that case you could see that if this value falls, in that case price setting line would fall. इस इक्वेशन में अगर आप देखोगे, प्राइस सेटिंग इक्वेशन में अगर ये वैल्यू कम हो जाए तो W by P भी कम हो जाएगी. ओके, सो वही बात हम अप्लाई करेंगे. सो हियर you will have wage setting and price setting equations giving you wage setting curve like this and price setting curve like this. Okay, so with rise in mu you will have the downward shift of your price setting curve. Okay, so PS does, so you will have UN here and you will have UN dash here. So rise in natural rate of unemployment. Okay, so you could see that with the rise in mu you had a price setting line shifting downward, and that downward shift is parallel. Okay, and when will this occur? मार्कअप कब ज्यादा होगा? जितना कम कंपटीशन होगा उतना ही ज्यादा मार्कअप होगा. जैसा कि आपने देखा था परफेक्ट कंपटीशन के केस में, जब ज्यादा कंपटीशन थी तो उस केस में मार्कअप का वैल्यू जीरो था, म्यू वाज जीरो. सो व्हेन यू हैव लेसर कंपटीशन योर मार्कअप म्यू इज हायर. ओके, सो व्हेन you have lesser competition, or you can say competition is reduced. Okay, and this can be achieved from the weakness of antitrust laws. एंटीट्रस्ट लॉ का मतलब क्या होता है कि एक हमारे यहाँ इंस्टीट्यूशन है कंपटीशन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया, जो कि रेगुलेट करती है इस तरह के कंडीशंस को. ठीक है, वो क्या करती है कि जैसे मान लो कोई दो फर्म है और दोनों मर्ज करके कंपटीशन को कट आउट करना चाहती है, तो वो उसको प्रिवेंट करेगी ताकि मार्केट में कंपटीशन बना रहे. कंपटीशन बना होने से कंज्यूमर्स को फायदा होता है. ठीक है, तो अगर मान लो कंपटीशन नहीं रहेगा तो क्या करेंगी फर्म्स, फर्म्स क्या करेंगी, अपने मनमानी प्राइस चार्ज कर सकती है. सो इसको रोकने के लिए होता है. तो आप हमेशा याद रखना, जब भी कंपटीशन को कम किया जाएगा तो आपका मार्कअप बढ़े, मतलब प्राइस ज्यादा चार्ज हो जाएगी. ओके, सो वेन लेसर कंपटीशन और कंपटीशन इज रिड्यूस्ड, दैट मीन्स एंटी ट्रस्ट लॉज गेटिंग वीकर. तो इसमें से कोई भी वर्ड एग्जाम में आपको दिखे, ये एंटी ट्रस्ट लॉ कमजोर हो गया, कंपटीशन कम हो गया, या किसी कारण से कंपटीशन रिड्यूस कर दिया गया, ठीक है, किसी भी कारण से, तो आप समझ जाओगे कि मार्कअप बढ़ गया है. हम्म, उसके बाद एनालिसिस कर लोगे. तो इसको जानना इसलिए जरूरी है क्या क्या कंडीशन है जिससे म्यू आपका चेंज होता है. ठीक है, उसी तरह आप देखोगे व्हेन यू हैव फॉल इन म्यू, in that case you will have 1 upon 1 plus mu being increased. In that case you will have the wedge setting and price setting equations giving you price setting line like this, wedge setting equation giving you wedge setting curve like this, and you will have the rise in the price setting line. That means price setting line will move upward. Okay, so here you have 1 upon 1 plus mu, and here you will have 1 upon 1 plus mu. In the lower panel, if we are using dash, so let's write mu dash. Okay, so here you have mu dash. So here you have 1 plus mu, and for this you can write 1 upon 1 plus mu dash. तो यहाँ पे आपको आएगा un, यहाँ आएगा आपको un dash. सो यहाँ पे नेचुरल रेट ऑफ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट क्या हुआ, फॉल किया है. ओके, सो यू हैव un falling, that means natural rate of unemployment falls. ओके, और ये कब हुआ, जब आपका म्यू कम हुआ. ओके, in that case you have mu dash being less than mu. Here you have mu dash being greater than mu. Okay, so here you will have PS line shifting upward, and that upward shift will be parallel. Okay, so what this means, that your competition has increased. With increased competition there would be low markup. So lower markup will mean the firms will not be able to charge some extra price above the marginal cost, that was wage. Okay, so here it means when you have higher competition, or you can say competition is increased. or you can say stringent antitrust laws enforced. चलो इसको नोट डाउन करो एक बार, कोई दिक्कत है तो बताओ. Now, here we have derived the natural rate of unemployment, okay, that is UN. Now, we will find level of employment corresponding to this. That would be called natural level of employment, okay. And the output corresponding to this particular natural rate of unemployment will be called natural level of output. Let us determine the equations for those two cases, okay. So here we have to determine the conditions for natural level of output. So for output you were writing y, so for natural level of output you will write yn, okay. So remember we are talking about the level, not a rate, okay. So remember one thing, from unemployment rate we can get unemployment. So unemployment is the number, absolute value, okay. And unemployment rate क्या है, जब unemployment को divide करते हो लेबर फोर्स से तो आपका आता है unemployment rate. इस unemployment rate से आप employment निकाल सकते हो, employment का लेवल क्या है, और इस employment से आप output निकाल सकते हो, ये आपका प्रोडक्शन फंक्शन से हुआ, ठीक है. Now let's see. So you have your unemployment rate U equal to U upon L. This is equal to L minus N upon L. This is 1 minus N upon L. अब यहाँ पे small u जो है, this is unemployment rate. Okay. So what is the rate of unemployment? Rate of unemployment is the ratio of unemployment to the labor force. So U is level of unemployment, okay. So I would call this as level of unemployment. And what is L? L is the labor force. So whatever the amount of labor force you have, if some proportion is unemployed, then the remaining will be employed, okay. So L minus U, that is equal to N. This is your level of employment, okay. So you had L being divided into two parts. That means the labor force can either be employed or unemployed. So if it is employed, then you can write N. If unemployed, then you can write U, okay. So L is equal to N plus U. So I use this to derive N equal to L minus U, okay. So this is what you have. So from this you can get N upon L equal to 1 minus U, okay. This is the rate of employment, okay. Now if you calculate N, then you will have N equal to 1 minus U times L. This is level of employment. Okay. Now let's see if you find corresponding to the natural rate of unemployment the level of employment. In that case you will get the natural level of employment. This NN is equal to 1 minus UN times L. This is natural level of employment. Okay, so you could see that for every unemployment rate there would be some employment level. Okay, so for the natural rate of unemployment you will have the natural level of employment. Okay, so this is what you have. Now from the production function you had y equal to n. In that case you can write this as yn equal to nn, or you can write this yn equal to 1 minus un times L. Okay, so this is what you have as the level of employment corresponding to the natural rate of unemployment. Okay, now you have got this as natural level of output. Why output? Because you are using y. Okay, so this is what you have. Now these are the cases how you can derive the natural level of employment and natural level of output. Okay, so if in the exam you are asked to derive the natural level of employment and natural level of output, you have to do this case. Okay, now if this is the condition, then whatever the equilibrium conditions we had here, f of un z equal to 1 upon 1 plus mu. So if we want to express this condition corresponding to the natural level of output, in that case in place of un we can express this as a function of yn. Okay, so let's see what is the value of un. So you have in the equilibrium f of un z was equal to 1 upon 1 plus mu. Okay, so we will replace un. So from this condition you can calculate un in terms of yn. So you will have that as yn upon L equal to 1 minus un. This implies un equal to 1 minus yn upon L. So उसको लिख सकते हो f of 1 minus yn upon L z, and this would be equal to 1 upon 1 plus mu in the equilibrium. Okay, so this is the equilibrium level of output. Okay, so यहाँ देखो आप, यहाँ क्या किया था आपने, un निकाला था जब आपके पास म्यू और जेड थे. ओके, सो यू आर कैलकुलेटिंग un. ठीक है, अब यहां देखो, यहां पे जब हमने un के जगह पे yn के टर्म्स में लिखा, तो अब इसमें से yn आप निकाल सकते हो क्योंकि लेबर फोर्स आपको पता है, 1 तो खुद ही कंस्टेंट है. ठीक है, तो yn आप कैलकुलेट कर सकते हो गिवन कंडीशन पे, जब जेड दिया हो म्यू दिया हो, क्योंकि लेबर फोर्स दिया ही रहेगा, तो आप yn निकाल सकते हो, बिल्कुल निकाल सकते हो इस चीज से. ठीक है, सो यू कैन कैलकुलेट द नेचुरल लेवल ऑफ आउटपुट इन द इक्विलिब्रियम. ठीक है, इसको नोट डाउन करो एक बार। Okay, so let us summarize. We had the wedge setting equation as f of uz giving you the real wedge. Okay, this was your wedge setting equation when you had p equal to pe. Okay, or you can say the wedge determination occurred through wedge being equal to pe into f of uz. Okay, so this was the condition, and you had the negative relationship between wedge and unemployment. Why the z was being positively related with w, while the expected price was directly affecting w. ठीक है, प्राइस सेटिंग में क्या था, you had w by p equal to 1 upon 1 plus mu. Okay, so the markup was determining the real edge. Okay, and in equilibrium we had f of uz equal to 1 upon 1 plus mu, and the unemployment rate that you had was called the natural rate of unemployment. So when you equate wage setting and price setting equations, then you can determine un. Okay, and corresponding to un you have the natural level of employment, and corresponding to this you have the natural level of output. ठीक है, निकाल सकते हो. So this is what we have discussed. Now you could say that this model looked at labor market only, that determines the output level. इसलिए एक क्लासिकल को फॉलो करते हैं. ठीक है, सो इसलिए इस मॉडल को बोलते हो नियो क्लासिकल मॉडल. ठीक है, and you could see that wage setting and price setting equations were there, so you will call this as wage setting price setting मॉडल. ठीक है, इसके आगे पढ़ेंगे एएस एडी मॉडल भी इसको बोलते हैं, अगले चैप्टर से उसकी कहानी करेंगे. ठीक है, अब यहाँ पे देखो हमने एजम्पशन लिया था P इक्वल टू पी, और एक और एजम्पशन लिया था देयर इज ओनली वन इनपुट दैट इज लेबर. ठीक है, तो लेबर हो भी सकता है, लेबर के अलावा भी हो सकते हैं, मतलब लेबर कैन बी द सिंगल इनपुट एंड देयर कैन बी मेनी इनपुट्स इंक्लूडिंग लेबर. ठीक है, तो ये कंडीशंस है. हाइपोथेटिकली हमने सिंपल करने के लिए बस ऐसा ही लिया था. और दूसरा एजम्पशन लिया था P इक्वल टू पी. इन शॉर्ट रन you have P minute being equal to पी। ओके, सो पी अगर पीई के बराबर होगा, पी पीई के बराबर होगा, तभी तो इस इक्वेशन से आप इवन निकालोगे। ओके, सो करस्पॉन्डिंग टू दिस कंडीशन यू हैड द नेचुरल लेवल ऑफ आउटपुट, ओके, कमिंग फ्रॉम द नेचुरल रेट ऑफ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट। ठीक है, सो अगर पी पी के इक्वल है ही नहीं, तो आपका नेचुरल रेट ऑफ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट निकल सकता है नहीं। ओके, देन द इक्विलिब्रियम unemployment rate may not be natural rate of unemployment। ठीक है, कहने का मतलब when you have PE equal to P, then the equilibrium unemployment rate U is unemployment rate। is the natural rate of unemployment। ओके, सो इसको जल्दी से नोट डाउन करो, इसके बाद वाइंड अप करेंगे। 2-3 मिनट का फिर से मैं रिफ्रेश करूंगा आपको, जो भी डिफिनेशंस हमने पहले किए थे वर्कफोर्स वगैरह का। ठीक है, इसको आप नोट डाउन करो। चलो, सो यू हैड वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन। ठीक है, कंफ्यूजन को दूर करने के लिए मैं यहां वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन कर दे रहा हूं। इस वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन में कुछ लोग काम करने के लिए आएंगे। ओके, सो व्हाट एवर द पीपल वांट टू वर्क, दे विल बी टर्म्ड एज लेबर फोर्स। ठीक है, वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन मतलब जो भी हमने डिफाइन किया हुआ है 15 to 59 ईयर्स ऑफ एज। ठीक है, तो जो वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन है उससे जो भी लोग काम करने के लिए आ रहे हैं दे आर कॉल्ड लेबर फोर्स। ओके, सो इनका जो रेट निकालोगे उस रेट को बोलेंगे पार्टिसिपेशन रेट। क्या बोलोगे? पार्टिसिपेशन रेट। ठीक है, अब इस लेबर फोर्स में दो केसेस होंगे, एक होगा एम्प्लॉयमेंट का लेवल और एक होगा अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट का। सो कहने का मतलब व्हाट एवर द लेबर फोर्स यू हैव, either they may be employed or they may be unemployed। ओके, सो एम्प्लॉयड को हमने डिनोट किया था एन से, अनएम्प्लॉयड को डिनोट किया था यू से, लेबर फोर्स को डिनोट किया था एल से। ठीक है, और अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट का जो रेट निकलेगा दिस इज एम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट, दिस विल बी एन अपॉन एल। ठीक है, सो एन अपॉन एल इज द रेट ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट, और अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट से जो रेट निकलेगा दैट इज यू अपॉन एल विच इज यू। ठीक है, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट। ठीक है, तो ये कंडीशन होता है, ये याद रखना। अब आपको कभी कभी ऐसा भी होता है कि वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन का रेशियो दिया होता है। ठीक है, तो आप कैसे निकालते हो? दैट इज टोटल पॉपुलेशन का कितना परसेंटेज लोग वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन में आ रहे हैं। ठीक है, सो दैट इज हाउ यू कैन गेट द वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन। एक और टर्म देखोगे, डिपेंडेंसी। डिपेंडेंसी रेशियो का मतलब होता है नन वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन, नन वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन डिवाइडेड बाय वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन। ठीक है। सो डिपेंडेंसी रेशियो में क्या होता है, कितने लोग काम करने के लिए एबल नहीं है, ठीक है, और उसका रेशियो निकालते हो वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन से। ठीक है। सो इसमें भी आता है आपका डिपेंडेंसी रेशियो में, एक होगा चाइल्ड का, दूसरा होगा एल्डरली। ठीक है, चलो एक बार नोट डाउन कर लो।